So my first question is, if we just go into it, your Soc 119 lectures have millions of YouTube views where you confront students with uncomfortable truths and about race and privilege. When you see a room full of students getting visibly uncomfortable, they're struggling with these ideas, what's kind of going through your mind? Like, are you enjoying the discomfort, or like, I guess, what are you feeling?
Well, first, it's such a big classroom. There's 800 students in there that at most I can kind of look around the room and pick out a few folks, right? And I mostly don't see discomfort. I mostly see curiosity. At least that's what I focus on. And when I see that, when I see people like really listening in and zooming in on what I'm saying, I feel excited. I know things are happening for them. And then when I hear discomfort, when I hear students voicing a certain amount of uncertainty or discomfort or something, I also feel excited about that, because, that's what thinking is about, right? It's about stretching the limits of our imagination. And, when you're 20 years old, you don't know much of anything. Well, I'm 64 years old and I don't know much of anything. My knowledge base is very limited. Yesterday, or a couple of days ago, I spoke at the Korean Space Agency, and they were walking me through some of their labs and different things that they were doing, and I thought, oh my God, and I actually study astronomy a bit and space a bit. Like, I'm really curious about a lot of it, but I was thinking about how much I don't know compared to these folks here, and that's just one tiny slice. Yeah,
I think you're awfully humble for saying that. There's you're obviously an expert in your own domain, but I guess at the same time, there are so many other domains that, we can't possibly know at the same time.
Well, even in my own domain though, right? Like, I study the world. I'm very much a generalist. So my job or my challenge is to know a little bit of something about everywhere, and I do mostly. You can pick out a country or culture on the map, and I most often can say something, right? And quite often I can say a lot, because that's what I do. I spend my life studying. But man, the older you get, the less you know. And what that means is, the older you get, the more questions you have, and the more you realize you don't know and you don't understand. And gosh, everything that's missing, It's like I've traveled to about 50 countries now in my life, and I've traveled to many of them multiple times, and some, 8, 9, and 10 times, and I've lived abroad for many years of my life. But now that I'm my age and I'm starting to knock the countries off my list that I'm really never going to get to, and it's far more than I've ever traveled to. And so I can see all the places that I will not go, and so that's similar to the thinking. I can see all of the things that I will never learn. Yeah.
I like your perspective. It's very, I think the only way to describe it is zoomed out. You're looking at it at a much wider perspective. And that's part of, I think, the unique perspective you have for, these sociological effects, right? These societal issues. I think your perspective on it is so zoomed out that you're able to see kind of like a neutral, balanced perspective. And I really like that.
Yeah, I do too, actually. It keeps me engaged.
One thing that I really like about your lectures actually is the way that you don't have a prescribed lesson, or maybe you do. Maybe you do have something set up, but I really like that you ask questions, like really good questions, and you bounce the students back and forth onto ideas. You're like, maybe you start with one idea, but then you have a question to challenge it. And to flip them onto the other side. And then once they're there, you flip them back, right?
Right. That's a lot of fun. And then they get confused and they have no idea. They think I'm trying to get them to think a certain way. And then I not trick them, but, then I flip them back to where they were sitting, Yeah, I like doing that.
And I think, that does capture, the complexity of a lot of the problems we're facing, the problems you're talking about. And I like that there's no prescribed kind of idea, but, you expose all of these different, I guess, angles that a certain issue has.
Yeah. I had that recently. we were talking about climate change and how students in different cultures think about climate change. And with this one particular student, I was kind of walking him through just climate collapse and like, wow, this is such a big issue. And are you thinking about it? And how are you not thinking about this? And this is going to impact your life. And so we started walking down this whole path. And then I turned it around and I said, well, why would you waste time thinking about this? Like, you're young, you got a life to live. Like, why are you going to waste time feeling negative? There's nothing you can't do anything about climate collapse.
Yeah, it's not like we can physically go and change something because it's working at such a large scale.
Yeah. But when I flipped it in that way, he was so confused. He said,
wait, why are you doing this to me?
But, going back to the class, you called it a lecture. And it's not really a lecture, people call it that because that's what it's called, in the
structure of the school.
Yeah,
right?
in the industry, right? But it's an engagement, right? And I think that if your listeners don't know, I mean, usually I pick a topic and then I have student volunteers and I bring some of them down front and then I speak with them. So it's a very different kind of environment.
Yeah, just to, I guess, provide context, usually the so-called lectures, the engagement, Sam takes, I guess, a long list of volunteers and, you choose a couple of people as a panel to come up front into the classroom and you basically just ask questions and have a discussion and really listen to what people think. And the people watching, I'm sure they're happy that they're in the audience instead of being on the spot. Yeah. But I think just seeing what other people think, verbalizing the ideas that people usually don't, I think that's powerful, and I think that really leads the conversation in a way that it's impactful and it changes the way we think.
Yeah, I think that just on this issue, I don't know if you're going to say, but. Yeah, students, they really do want to talk. Of the 800 students, about 200 of them apply to volunteer. And, they want to they want to be put on the spot. And they don't just want to be on YouTube. They're all always reluctant for that, or at least like reticent about that. But they want to have the challenge to think. And it's never about having an answer because the key, I'm asking them questions about what they see from their perspective. And that I learned from my wife, by the way. As long as you do that with people, they always have something to say. And it's always interesting. And of course, that's why people watch, because they want to know what young people are thinking.
Yeah. And today I want to kind of get into what your life looked like, how you came to be at this point, leading such an amazing kind of class and discussion. And, one of the adjective that we chose today was iconoclastic to describe your path. I guess for you, what does being an iconoclast mean to you? And what's the most sacred belief you have, in yourself that you had to destroy, because of that word?
So an iconoclast is somebody who questions it.
Now, looking backwards a little bit, if you could go back to any of your life stages with your current wisdom, which stage would you go back to? And is there maybe a stage that you would like to change a little bit? Maybe give yourself a little nudge to go on a different path?
Oh, man. I would probably go back to when I was really studying hard and I was a young man trying to kind of find my way a little bit. I probably would, the degree to which I felt uncomfortable about my future in any way, because I wasn't pure, I mean, I did trip up and like, oh my God, what if I, what if I can't,
right.
I would absolutely get rid of all of that. Yeah, I was lucky that it was a very small, tiny voice that wasn't very loud, but I would get rid of all of it. Yeah, I would eradicate the voice fully. But at the same time, it helped me be who I am. So it's all good. Yeah.
I don't think it's necessarily like regret or anything like that, but it's I like that. It's what you're trying to say is that we shouldn't fear too much about the uncertainty of what's about to happen.
Yeah, I would say that. Yeah, because we don't know.
If there's a message to the younger generation who have unconventional ideas, but are like kind of terrified of challenging anything. Is there anything that you would love to tell them?
Oh, that's so interesting. Since you would think that I do, right? I've been teaching for 42 years. I've been saying things to students, except that at some point I stopped telling them anything. They sometimes ask me, like, what do you need? What do I need to know? Yeah, well, here's the one thing. This is the only thing. This is the life lesson that is the life lesson. And if you don't learn it until you're my age. But you don't really learn it. You're lucky if you do, but if you do, it's probably because you probably smoke a lot of pot or something. I don't know. But okay, look, this is what I tell my students, okay, at this stage, and myself every day. I live with this.